Ana Carreño, an interior designer specializing in biophilic design. She works as an interior trend forecasting consultant through her brand Homey Decor, and she's an educator here at Pacific Design Academy. Anna came to Canada in 2024. Felipe Prado, who is a furniture, cabinetry, and product designer and the owner of Del Prado Studio, and one of the owners of Lux Home Interiors, a high-end furniture and design store here in Victoria, with international experience living and working in several countries. He came to Canada in 2011. And finally, Danny Manticon, who is an interior, furniture, and industrial designer, who also works as a builder here in Victoria. Owns and operates his own company, Riverwood Crafting, and serves as a department head of interior design at Pacific Design Academy. He came to Canada in 2006. So before diving into our topics today, let's get to know our panelists a little bit better. I want to know what brought each of you to Canada, and what's one thing that either surprised you or a challenge that you faced when you arrived. Start with Anna.
Thank you. So, well, I moved to Canada because I got married, and my husband works here, so that's the reason that I'm here. So one thing that surprised me the most, of course, the different lifestyles in relation to Mexico, but also I would say nature. You have beautiful landscapes. I love Victoria. Victoria is a beautiful city, so that's one thing that surprised me the most. And I have to face many challenges since then, but I would say that one would be the language. Here, it's not the same thing to sometimes practice in Mexico, but here you have to talk daily, so that's one challenge that I faced daily. Yeah.
Well, for me, thank you everyone for being here and being here on time. I think a lot of people will arrive later.
Mexican time.
Yeah, right.
Mexican time.
That's right. The reason why I moved here is also my wife. She's born and raised in Victoria. We were living in Italy and we met there, but we decided to move here. Something that surprised me, I don't want to say surprised me, but something that got my attention right away when I moved from Mexico is how the culture in Canada, especially in Victoria, is very community oriented. In Mexico, it's very family oriented, but in Canada, it's community oriented. You don't see garbage in the street. People think about the neighbor, and everything has an order and the rules, and people follow the rules. There's no flexibility. Red light, you stop. And in Mexico, sometimes could be more flexible. I don't saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just different. It's what I perceive. And one of the challenge that comes to my mind right now, especially in design, was to get used to 2 inches, because in Mexico everything is here is everything imperial. In Mexico is metric, and it's really simple. Metric is very simple. Imperial is really complex, and it was one of the things. But
for me, it was Taekwondo. I used to compete for the Mexico team. I used to fight, and I had a very good opportunity when I was younger to come and train to Victoria with a coach here, and that's how I came for the first time to Victoria. And one of the things that really impacted me when I first came was just learning how big the country was. This is back, and I don't want to sound super old, but this is back in 2006. We didn't have the modern technology we have right now, so I literally came with a map, and I met some friends from the Canada team, and I remember when I was at the airport, I called them, I called one of them, and I told her, hey, I'm in Canada now, I'm in Victoria, like, where are you? She's like, I'm in New Brunswick. And I'm like, oh my God, I was closer from Monterrey to, so my coach was here, eventually we trained together, and it was a great experience, but that's how I came to Canada for the first place, and I just kind of fell in love with Canada, Victoria, and just around, so.
Thanks. A little bit about how you got here. Let's talk about what you do here. Anna, can you talk a little bit about?
Thank you. So So I'm currently working as an interior design instructor here at PDA, but also I'm running my business, Homey Decor, where I provide consulting services to designers and architects that want to apply this biophilic design approach in their own design projects. I also give consultings about decoration and interior design. But before that, when I was in Mexico, I worked for a retail company for almost 5 years. It's a very well-known company called Liverpool. So here we have some pictures about that. I was department, and so I had to create the interior design for the advertising campaigns of the company. So that's why you can see some pictures of the company's magazine along with my designs. And it was not just about designing spaces or visuals, it was creating an internal laboratory inside the company so we can experiment with materials, finishes, furniture, decor before going into the advertising campaign. So it was a very good experience for me. And while also completing my master's in architecture and interior design, and if we go to the next slide, you will find that I specialized in biophilia. This was my first project that I did with this design approach. And that's something that I would like to implement here in Canada as well.
Did the ladder get built? It's really very cool.
Yeah, it's a hotel lobby and bar. Yeah.
¿Dónde?
Ciudad de Mexico, in the Hilton Hotel. Was a renovation of the Hilton Hotel. Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Well, for me, I try to divide my time in two. I have my own business that is the Prado Studio, and mostly what we do is custom millwork and custom furniture pieces. And then the rest of the time, I am partially owner in a furniture store. It's called Lux Home Interiors here in downtown. In the store, we buy and we sell high-end custom furniture as well, mostly made in Canada or in the States. With my own company, I specialize in furniture pieces as well as millwork, for example, kitchens, closets. That business I also divided in two. There is things like anything that goes inside of a house that is attached to the wall is more like an investment. And then I also sell, if somebody wants a custom table or a coffee table or a credenza, well, we will do, that's one off. But mostly that's what I do in Victoria.
And I started a review company about 10 years ago. This is my business partner, Juanjo, he's over there. Yeah, we started this company quite a few years ago. We started by just creating things, reclaimed, sustainable, just trying to grab our hands onto everything and making as creative as possible. We were working from like a garage and just, cutting stuff. We bought a chainsaw and like we just, super unsafe, and we just started to do a bunch of things. And then recently, or shortly after, we got the opportunity to get a shop. And it was kind of like, wow, there was nothing there, so we built everything in the shop. And we transitioned a little bit, if you do the next slide, into interior design and furniture design. So we've done pieces. We do the whole concept of the project, where it's from cabinet to live edge with epoxy resin, tiling. We do the design for the building structures. Bathrooms and kitchens are a little bit more of our niche, but it's that combination between furniture design and space planning with interior design. But now it's all shifts towards project managing and just working with other trades and working with other people, which is a great combination of kind of what we do, and keep it very cultural, right? We have a bigger crew now, and we try to bring the very Mexican aspect of the relationship that you create with the client, and just being able to communicate that with the clients, which you don't see too much in here. which is the reason why we've been a bit busier, I would say. So yeah, Riverwood, we've been at it for about 10 years now. And then on the side, I'm here at the school. I like to teach and just kind of bring students into our sites and show them around the real kind of construction building side for the city for sure. So, yeah.
Amazing, thank you. You all have such an amazing experience, and we'll dive into our topics today. So coming from a different country, I can imagine how cultural differences impact the way interior spaces are used. So let's start with Anna. In your experience, influence your biophilic design approach, and can you explain what that is?
Yeah, well, if we go to the next slide. So first of all, I would say that it's completely different the way we design spaces in Mexico than in here. Because, well, as you know, we always encourage social interaction in Mexico. We always want to have family gatherings. It's very important for us, that part, in our type of lifestyle. So, for instance, in my parents' house, we have like a dining area with a small dining table, additional to the kitchen island with chair stools. And we also have another dining room for special occasions with a larger dining table. So as you can see, we have several rooms for basically join and get together as a family. And when I started teaching classes here at PDA, I shared with my students some Mexican layout. And one student told me, why does this layout has many dining rooms? I don't understand. So it's because we have different types of lifestyle. And the other example, I would say, well, I live, when my parents' house is near to Mexico City, is half an hour from there. So my brothers have to move daily from my home to their jobs, and they spend about 4 hours in traffic daily. Okay, so this has consequences, especially we have high stress levels in huge cities like Mexico City. And I think here in Canada, it's completely different. We have a more balanced way of life. So I would say that we have balance between work and leisure activities. People have time to go camping, hiking, or walking in nature. And that's something that maybe is difficult to do in Mexico for several situations or circumstances. So I would say that seeing these situations of stress levels, I found in biophilic design the answer to that. So if we go to the next slide, philia that started in the 80s. But biophilic design is a pretty emergent concept in several countries. And basically is how we integrate nature in the built environment. It's not only about vegetation, it's about shapes, natural materials, textures, spatial maybe principles that we can apply in the built environment so we can improve the well-being of the user. So here we have some examples of that. We have a handbag boutique in Milan. We have a hotel in Singapore applying these principles. If we go to the other slide, you'll see rammed earth and the application of that in a wall. We also have some sensorial elements that we could apply as well in different ways. So as you can see, this design approach can help us in many ways to have a restorative effect on humans. And the last slide, you will find one of my students' project. It was a venue in Mexico City as well. And as you can see, it's is in construction now. With these design principles, with this biophilic design approach. Okay, so I found biophilia as the answer to that type of situations and our health problems that we have nowadays.
That's amazing. That's really cool, Anna. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. Danny, how does your experience as a builder influence your design process? And do you feel that climate sometimes shapes design decisions more than culture?
So in regards to climate, I think absolutely yes. It's very different. Obviously, comparing it to Mexican design to in Canada, I think the design approach it's now very similar. We have more. It's easier now to find what's happening all over the world, right? Whereas in 20 years ago, if you went to see, what's happening in La Ramblas in Barcelona, you have to go there and see it, right? Whereas now you can take a visual tour of the Louvre Museum and see everything. So it's a bit easier to go to the styles and detect it. I think climate here plays a huge role on how things are designed. Obviously, a country where it snows, rains, and there's always it's winds and stuff like that. It changes how we shape buildings, how we shape the ceiling, the roof, and those kind of things, right? For example, right now we're starting a project where we're cutting a house kind of like 3/4 and building a dormer, right? And we only have so much summertime to actually do that, and then because the winter comes in. Whereas in Mexico, you don't really have factors like the climate. In that case, obviously you have warmth and very different. Whereas in here, you have to take those things in consideration. And what was the? Oh yeah. So the other question as a design. So I was an interior designer for this. For just to remind me of the answer, but I started as an interior designer, and it was all theory. I went to school for it, and it was all projects, and imagine. But my first business partner, he was a contractor, he was a builder, and I learned everything from him. And the first wall that I actually knocked down with my hands, and I saw the structure and the elements of what was inside, that immediately I was thinking about, I was like looking at the whole, how it was built and why it was like this. Now I started designing as a builder. Now I know, okay, I can move this wall. And that's something that a lot of designers that don't have that experience, it's a mistake that they can make, is that they start talking about, oh yeah, let's just remove that wall, but you don't know structurally if that's as easy as it can be. We've seen mistakes like that. It's all with plumbing or load-bearing walls or whatever. So being able for me to actually build and like open and demo and do all those fun trades as a designer, it helped and went all the how I designed. So it was a very good experience that I still use. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, that's awesome. And Felipe, from your international experience, do you think culture influences how you design furniture?
What, sorry?
Do you think culture influences how you design furniture?
Yes. I have this one. Here's a good example of something that this cabinet, I built this cabinet like 2 years ago. And if I compare things in Mexico, or I used the opportunity to live in Italy, in Madrid, and in Spain, and compared to Europe or Mexico, here I noticed that my clients, or the clientele that I have, they value specific things. For example, this cabinet, my client asked me, I want to have a special cabinet next to my dining room, because inside I want to have some plates that are really expensive, and I designed it with the special dimensions for each plate. And then the design on the doors was also related to the rest of the space in the house. I designed the base, and we powder coating the base with the same tone at the same time with the handles, just to match. So in regards to the question of the culture, how the clientele that I have here, one of the things I notice is they like things really well done, and they like things like the expectation for people here is high for the most part. And in Mexico, not everybody, but sometimes when something is not perfect, it is okay. Here, I faced the experience that it has to be perfect, because when I pay you the right amount. I didn't say, oh, will you take half? No. In Mexico, sometimes we have that culture of bargaining, which is great. With the clients that I have, the culture is, this is the price, they pay the price, but they expect the results. It's something that I notice in terms of culture. I forget to say my business partner is here too, Elaine. Just so, yeah, that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, thanks, Felipe. Let's talk about constructions. For example, solid construction in Mexico versus more modular systems in Canada. Danny, what differences have you observed in construction methods?
The biggest ones is the use of concrete and cement, right? I think that's what really shapes, a big difference. Houses in Mexico are done mostly of concrete, whereas here it's all wood, most of them, right? Or if it's concrete here, there's buildings here that are made of concrete, but then it's layered with drywall and all this. And that was in Mexico, it's left as it is. But one of the things that this is a house in Mexico City that we use is, for example, wide stairs, right? And we use big steps. Sometimes we don't have a code like we have here, where the thread and the razor and all this. So we just kind of like go as kind of how the space fits. But the integration of the design, now we're integrating that here, right? So if you look into my next slide, this is a house that we're doing here, and we've integrated the same style of stairs to code to make that work. When the client of this house, she's from Mexico, so we talked about having this done to represent that. The stairs in Mexico are made out of concrete, right? Here it's all walnut, it's different finish. Maybe it's not going to last, not that it's not gonna last, but the thing is, doing all the minor corners and all that, somebody falls, it's easier to break or to chip in that sense. But integrating that difference, I think the use of wood here represents a lot of that. Whereas over there, we have a lot of concrete that can be used for that kind of builds. So a bit of a difference for sure.
Yeah, that's a good example too. Anna, can you share a commonly used in Mexico that is used differently here?
In the next slide, we have some examples of that. We have some examples of the application of cantera, that is stone, in Mexico. Here we have an example of a cathedral in Zacatecas, Mexico. As you can see, it's part of our culture. And also the application of cantera in columns and in other parts of the interiors, but in relation to how it's applied here in Canada, maybe in here we apply natural stone as tiles or pavers for the facades or for the interiors, but it's completely different. I think it's related more, it's related to an aesthetic way, or a better appealing way to show the constructions, and in Mexico it's more about culture and tradition.
Thanks, Anna. Do you think that quality regulations and standards differ from country, and how does that affect the type of offer?
Yes, I think it is different. I guess the tool that I can use is in Mexico, and I don't have too much experience because most of my working time has been in here, but in Mexico sometimes you have access to use some finishes that maybe you will not even have access to buy it in Canada, because the chemicals that you have in there, maybe Canada say, well, you cannot even use it in here. In Mexico, you use it, you just cover your mouth, done. And it could happen, right? For example, in the kitchen wall, sometimes there is some appliances that I have seen somewhere else in other countries that they haven't been approved because they maybe are not super safe to use, and you don't have access. So of course that will impact how you design it, because for example, this is a cabinet I did for a client, and you have to design based on what you have access. Beautiful walnut veneer that I have access, well, I use that one, and the steel that I have access, and the powder coating that I will be able to use. So when I am planning something, I already know what I want to be able to use. And I am not saying it's the best or it's the worst, it's just what it is available. But to your question, I believe yes, 100%. Some countries, and now I just only have a little bit of experience in Mexico, in Canada, but I'm sure, for example, in places like in China, I guarantee you there might be some materials that are really, really quite inexpensive that you can use it, and you will be able to achieve a really low price because you will have access to use that material that here you have to use another one that is more expensive. So I think yes, 100% they affect.
Yeah, thanks, Felipe. Yeah, it seems like a lot goes into determining the cost of things and creating furniture.
Yes,
as well.
especially in Victoria, and that's something that I always talk to my clients is, we live in a place where everything has to come here because we are in an island, and the rent of a shop is more expensive here than maybe in Mexico or in China. The salary for a carpenter is way higher here than in other countries. So the materials, the rent, and so if you are planning to do something from scratch, it will be substantially more expensive than something that is made in a place where you have access to do everything cheaper. If you have cheaper labor, cheaper materials, well, it will be cheaper.
And I think that that's a very hard reality, because when you come from a country, you immediately compare things to how they are in your country. The easiest example is here, any Mexican or Latino that goes and buys one taco, and all of a sudden you have to pay $10 for one taco. Immediately you're like, what? Like, this would never happen in Mexico, because we don't take into consideration the fact that how much it takes to actually create a taco here. So it's the same concept with materials and all that.
But outside of these supply factors of costs, basically the cost, be it transportation or labor rates or even supply availability of materials, wood first policies in BC, outside of the supply considerations, just to get apples a little closer to apples, are you dealing with the same kind of demand? Are you dealing with the same high-end demand clients there as you have been, obviously, or as at least the two of you have been in Mexico, compared to here, which is a very, if I may, small p Presbyterian culture where we don't, not we, but they don't want to show as much and maybe don't want to spend as much, even granted that difference in, as you said, quality expectations. And then I wonder if you're really comparing apples and apples by the same kind of clientele. So I'd love to hear about what the demand differences that you feel.
I think the quality it's a must. Like Felipe was saying earlier, here you as a client, okay, here's the price for whatever project it is, and it's our responsibility to always make sure that the quality is there, right? Like Felipe said, in Mexico, it tends to weigh, to shift a bit, not too much for the quality, but like the end result, right? And it shifts towards with the price and all that. Whereas in here, it's very commonly known, like set price. You have this. Yes, things change. There's variables and there's contingencies, of course. But I think that the end product, the expectations are way here. Whereas in Mexico, due to a bit more of openness and difference in mentalities, a bit more like, okay, well, it shifted towards this and towards that.
I guess what I'm asking, not about once price has been established, sure, in Mexico, supply and demand shift around like this maybe because of the negotiations, whereas here it's maybe stable. What I'm asking about, are you finding like a gap in demand here because aesthetically they're just not as interested in the kind of magic that you guys put into your pieces here, just because this isn't the culture for that? I guess that's what I'm asking.
In demand, if you mean the amount of people looking for something like we do?
And the level that they're looking at.
Yes, I will say it's a really small percentage of, it's not a huge demand. And from my perspective, because I happen to be in the store as well, if I have a beautiful table there and it's $3,000, $4,000, if we have to custom make one here in Victoria from scratch, maybe it's 8 or 10, I will say it's just a really small percentage of people will say, I want the 10,000 one.
Yeah.
90% of the people will be okay with the 4,000 one because that fits the needs. Yes, the demand is not huge. It's small. It's very small, especially in the furniture business. Especially talking about a piece like that, or a sofa or a chair, it's not a huge demand.
But I do
You've
have to-
adapted who you are and what you do.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have to add one last thing real quick, and that is where I teach this at school where we come from another country, we have an advantage, which is I came in with a history of another place, bringing it to another place. And when you see design done by designers here in Victoria, it follows the same trends, what's safe and what everybody's doing. And now I'm not saying us, but people that come from other countries that can see, that bring other things that they saw when they were kids or something, it brings a huge addition to it. Ivan Mead, to talk Mead Design Group, he's one of the top BC designers. He's Mexican, and he's got so much history and everything that he's done. There's another designer, Ines Han, she's German, and she's top designer, and they bring all of this cultural into their design, and I think that's what makes them very unique. And there's a demand for them. They're always busy. COVID happened, and they were still going at it, right? So I think that it brings a bit of an advantage for us in that case.
Thank you. Let's shift the conversation towards materials and furniture and how they shape the way people experience and interact with interior spaces. Anna, do you think that materials and finishes influence how people behave or feel in it?
Yes, for sure. So, I think, there are many studies and research about that, and about how materials, finishes, textures can influence the behavior of the user in a space. So here we have a good example of that. Here's the Van Dusen Botanical Garden in Vancouver. It's a beautiful place. And if you go into the interiors, you will see a lot of wood slats everywhere. And so research findings have found that wood is good for us in many ways. It can reduce it can lower the blood pressure. It can reduce stress. It can reduce anxiety. So we have several restorative effects when the use of wood in a certain percentage. So this example is great to explain biophilic design, to explain, it has LEED certifications as well in sustainability, so it's a great example, and we should continue working in that specific path. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. Danny, your work is very creative. How do you choose materials as a part of the process?
I think one of the first elements that we take into consideration at Riverwood is sustainability and durability, right? Like how long, most of the pieces that we do, if you go to the next slide, I think, we try to reuse and reclaim a bunch of materials. So we'll go into like demos and we'll grab old 2x4s and we'll process them. Trees that fell down naturally, we have a supplier that is always picking them up and then bringing it to us. So we preserve these pieces. Like for example, this was a demo of a house that we were able to keep the glass, right? Reuse it into a walnut slab that was done. So it's all 100% reused. Which again, we think about how long it's going to last, which is what we're trying to attain with sustainability. All of our finishes is like low VOC. We work, so if you go to the next one, we work a lot with epoxy resin, right? It's non-toxic. right? So the combination between epoxy resin, which is a material that is super durable, with wood, that's something that can last for a long time. Therefore, you're not getting rid of it, you're not creating waste, and so and so. It's food safe. I mean, obviously, if you drink the resin, yes, you're gonna die. But if you once it's dry, it's completely non-toxic. Once you're sanding it, it's non-toxic. That's the difference, right? When you like, it's all food safe, so you can use this, and then all these pieces, with time, you can just refinish, and they last. You know, if you go to the first slide. Or that one. So we combine a lot with materials, metals, tile, and wood, which is a fantastic way of creating that, and we try to apply that into our most of our materials. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. Felipe, from your experience working clients here, what are people really looking for when choosing furniture?
That's a good question. Say it depends on the client. I can just talk from my experience in the place where I am. The clients that I am helping, what they are looking for, I think it is functionality, quality, and usually they have very specific needs. For the most part, some clients will be okay with something that is already made and it's not exactly the color, but that will do. The kind of client that I help, they ask me, I want to have a piece in this room of my house, and I want to have a little room for very expensive bottles of whiskey, and I want you to design something, and it has to be this size, and this depth, and this height, because I have a really expensive paint above, etc. So I use this one as an example. I finished this a couple of months ago, and this is something that I can also share from my perspective, how I like to do things. I designed this cabinet keep with planning the use of different materials and the use of different shops. This is a cabinet that it was done in 5 different shops. In one place, we make the cabinet out of walnut. In another place, we custom build and cut in a CNC machine the doors. You probably don't notice some of the details, but the doors, we divide exactly the same amount of tubes. So there was no one that it was almost big or almost too short. It was exactly the same amount. The same thing on the curve. And this is a secret door, so you can actually open and have something inside. Everything that you see in gold is metal. This is a flat bar, and this is just a long piece of steel that was everything powder coating with. And funny story, when I was talking to the client, I showed her 10 options for gold. And she said, well, I don't really like any of these ones, but we find another one. And we had to bring like a box of the powder from Germany just because she couldn't find one that she liked in here. The stone is quartzite, it's 2 cm quartzite. That slab is probably $5,000, just the slab, just the material. But again, it's just one of a kind. And the biggest challenge in a piece like this is not only design it, we have to draft that concept in 3 different softwares because every shop needs a different software to cut and to fabricate. And I also, when I designed it, I had to plan how it's gonna be put in the house because this is really heavy, just the steel is super heavy, the stone is really heavy. Part of the stone, where you see all these veins, if I go like this, it will crack. Yeah. So it's super delicate, and I had to plan how we were gonna bring it to the side and have 2 teams mounting the thing, one thing with different steps. So in regard to your question, what is people looking, I would say it depends. These kind of people are looking for something unique, pretty, and functional. Is in my experience, that's kind of what I think they are looking. And just to share a little more information, I think a lot of people what is looking sometimes is something fast. We live also now in a world where some people go on the internet, see something, buy, and will get it the next day. Some people is looking for that. My clients no, but I guess a huge percentage of the population, they just go online. I need a bed. This one is cheap. Buy, boom. Amazon delivers the next day or in 2 days. So I will say it depends what customers,
Yeah.
whoever, depending on the client.
Yeah. Thanks, Felipe. It's such a beautiful piece of furniture.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about design approach for each of you. How has your design approach evolved since moving and working in Canada? Anna, how has your background in design influenced the way you teach your students?
Well, throughout the years, this biophilic design approach changed my whole perspective, not only in how I design, but also in my own lifestyle. So I always encourage students to think about the user experience when they are designing a space. So I always encourage them to go deep into the analysis stage before going into the design solution. So in that way, if they have a deep analysis, they will have better results. So that's something that I always constantly encourage students to do as part of my teaching. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Danny, how has your work between construction and design changed over time?
I think from the design has changed through the exposure of technology, right? Again, like I was showing in the example, I think that things that you would see 20 years ago, not so much get replicated nowadays. Now you can see all of that, which could be a mistake following trends that happen in another country to implement them here. Sometimes not the right use. So I've seen a big difference in design when it comes to that. We have a lot of clients that you're starting to work on a kitchen and you just had the first meeting and you leave and then you get 40 images of what they're going for, and they're all different. They don't follow a pattern, but they like it, they saw it. So I think that's changing a lot and making it a little bit harder because the client think it's easier because they just go online and find something and that's what I want, and it's not that simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Danny. And Felipe, how has living internationally influenced your design or curation decisions?
Well, for example, if I compare how it is life in Europe, at one point I was living in an apartment in Florence that the kitchen was probably just 10 feet long, and you have the washing machine, the fridge, everything in just that space because that's what you have. We have limited amount of space. Here we are lucky. We are very fortunate that we have a lot of room. Our streets are big. The houses are big. For the most part, we have access to more space. So, if I have a client and I am designing a kitchen, one of the first things I notice is for most of the clients is very important storage. They want to have a lot of storage. They want cabinets to go all the way to the ceiling. Even it's too high, you won't be able to reach the top, but you will have things in there for when you need it. Big pantries, and in North America, I think it's very important to have a lot of space for storage and another closet, and because you have a lot of stuff. In Europe, and you don't have that much. You have only what you need. And you have a small fridge, and you go more often to buy what you put in the fridge. Here, we probably go to Costco and we buy a huge box of many things, and we need this place to put a lot of stuff. So, yes, I think it's interesting how the design, in terms of how compact you can be, how efficient you can be, in other places compared to Canada, where we have a very generous, for most part the houses are quite substantial. Now things are changing, just like Danny was saying. Now the world is more global. You see something somewhere else and you replicate it here. That's why in downtown we have a lot of small apartments, and now you are thinking, okay, I need a small washing machine, and I need a small dishwasher. But I think, yeah, what influences from having the opportunity to be in another cities is and something that again Danny was mentioning, is it opens your perspective. When you are doing something, you probably think, oh, I remember somewhere somebody did something like this. What if I apply this to this project? And sometimes something really cool can come up. Sometimes it's a really bad idea, but you never know until you try and see if people like it.
Thanks, Felipe. And then this image.
Oh yes, and this is another thing I wanted just to remember when you asked the question. In terms of how it has helped me to do things with another people, this is a piece that I did in a collaboration with another designer welder that we work often. So she did the metal part, and I just integrate the solution for the wood, which for me brings me to the next point of, I believe right now we are in the world, we are in a situation where it's very important to collaborate. I know the technology is crazy and the computers can do pretty much anything by themselves, but I believe if anyone like me or anyone in the design world or almost anywhere, you want to bring value to your clients, you have to start doing something more human, and you have to collaborate. And that's kind of what I am doing. Every time that I design something, I am really pushing to use at least 2 or 3 different materials: wood, metal, stone. 1, for aesthetic; 2, because of functionality; and number 3, because from my marketing perspective is, if I design something that is complex, it will be hard for somebody else to copy or to try to do it. Some of the pieces that I show, all of the pictures I show you, something I did. I am confident that if somebody sees that and goes with carpenters, can you do that? He might say, well, I do this, but I don't want to get into the metal. If you go with a welder, he might say, I do this, but the rest, you. So what I'm trying to say is you always have to separate yourself in one way or another, and collaborations are always a good way, I think.
Really cool, thank you. And thank you so much, all 3 of you, for the individual questions. We have about 5 or 10 more minutes, and I would love to do some group questions that you can all answer and kind of talk amongst yourselves. The question I've been dying to know is, what current trends are you recommending or advising against?
I can start with that. I would recommend to stay away, for sure. And again, I talk to my students all the time. Current trends right now, we've seen a lot the use of black finishes, right? Like faucets, and somebody's doing the washerman's all white, and then everything's black. You see that in 2-3 years, and it looks terrible. In how much it gets waste. You do a beautiful shower in black texture tile or something, and within like a month you're gonna get like soap scum, you're gonna get soap, it's gonna look white, and therefore in 5 years it's gonna be wasted, and somebody's gonna want to renovate, and so and so. So those trends that you see, basically I tell my students, stay off of Pinterest, because Pinterest is a very easy way to see something pretty, but it's just meant to gain followers, right? It's not meant to last, if that makes sense. So definitely stay, in my opinion, stay away from that. And one other thing that I talk a lot about is when you use a concept into a style. For example, here in Victoria, they love doing lime wash. I don't know if everybody knows what lime wash is, but lime wash is basically an accent wall that is made out of powder paint. Okay, this dilute with water, and it's super expensive. Like just to get one bucket of lime wash paint, you have to bring it from Germany or so. It's super expensive, and it replicates a Mexican style, which is one of the cheapest methods of creating this. Like when I was a kid, we used to do this. It's just a combination of powder and water, and it goes back into how the Mayans used to create and paint and code. It was done so easily and so poorly that it became a part of our tradition. So when you see, for example, an hacienda in Mexico that is out of like orange or vibrant yellows, it's so texturized in this type of paint. Here, they sell it as a artisanal kind of piece that is super expensive, but it doesn't look accurate because it's in the different style. They do it in a very modern house or space just because they think it's going to elevate, but it's not, because it represents arches, it represents hacienda, it represents feel, it represents culture, right? So you have to know where you apply those materials and what pattern or formula it's creating to make it work. Otherwise, it won't work. And I've seen it happen where it's like, oh yeah, it looks nice with lime wash paint, but it wasn't done in the right scenario. That's what that, yes.
I would say that I have seen a mix between rustic finishes along with minimalism. So I have seen that mix between that two specific concepts or styles in interior. And I would say that I think you have several examples of that when you apply wood, right? And you mix it with epoxy resin. And so we have like a combination of textures and materials that we can apply. And as you said before, but we have to focus on maintenance as well and expensive costs for sure. So yeah, I would say that would be fine.
For me, I will just add quickly, I believe in terms of trends, the way that I see trends is kind of like fashion. What is in fashion? I believe that if you are doing something, anything, is a house or is a suit, I will stay within the classics, having a concept. Because a nice suit is always going to be a nice suit, regardless of what is the fashion right now in Italy. It's like the Empress Hotel. It's a beautiful building, and it was done many years ago, and in 200 years it's going to be still beautiful because it has a concept not based on what is in trend, but based on aesthetic. So I don't really think following a trend is a good idea, because it will change, and then people, just like Danny was saying, if you have a high gloss kitchen, you will think, oh, that was when it was in fashion to have high gloss. Now it is everything matte, or back in the day was oak. You will think, oh, that kitchen was done in that era. But if you have something that is classic, it has a concept, it has aesthetic, and it's elegant, it's more timeless. And I prefer something that is timeless, that is something that is on trend now, it's cool now, just like because it's in Instagram. And now with the speed of everything, in 2 months now there's a new trend, just like in fashion too. That's kind of my opinion again.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we can do a Q&A for anyone who wants to stick around. Our panelists will be around afterwards as well. But my last question for all three of you is, where do you see the biggest opportunities in your field in the coming years?
I can jump into that one. For us at least, one of the biggest opportunities that we've been doing is actually doing some work with WorkSafe BC. So it's mostly attacking accessibility and disability projects. So basically, we've been working a lot with people that something happened, in their work or in their life. A recent example is one of our clients, she was a pilot. 8 years ago, crashed the plane. She survived, was quadriplegic. So it changed her entire life, it changed her entire house, it changed everything. And now we are working with Works ABC because they're redoing their entire house to make it accessible. So when accessibility comes, design comes, right? We want to make sure that there is a design involved in this, which is fantastic because now you're actually helping this life-changing situation to make it adjustable to what you are. So it's a big, huge opportunity, not opportunity, but there's a huge, this is happening a bit more, Works ABC is doing a bit more of this kind of issues. They're attacking a bit more Vancouver Island. So we have been working a little bit alongside those kind of projects. And I think it's a big pathway to interior design and accessibility for sure.
Is that something that's formally procured that you, or is that something just random once-offs through the client? Is that through Works ABC?
It's through WorkSafe, yeah.
So they're procuring it formally?
Yes, and the thing with that is that very unfortunate. There used to be a contractor here that was landing all of those jobs. And it happened for about 15 years. And Works ABC, they're in Vancouver, so they would just send one person and all of a sudden check how they were doing and that's it. But this contractor was just making so much money out of very cheap things, right? So what happened is that when things were built, 10 years ago, they would fail, right? And now all of those clients or all of those homeowners, Works ABC is actively having to redo all that work, right? So now we're working with somebody in an IMO that is getting us all these projects to make sure that doesn't happen, that gets done in the right way. So we're actively doing a bit more towards that, just to ensure that it is done proper.
So you're contracting through someone else who has the Works
Exactly.
ABC contracts. Good for
Correct.
you. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, in addition to that, I would say that since the pandemic, in the way we design has changed a lot. So, for instance, a living room can be changed into a home office because of the needs of the user. So I think in the following years, we have to focus on how a space can change over time. To focus on adaptable spaces, depending on the lifestyle of the user and all that.
Well, for me, it's a really good question. When you ask how you perceive in the future in our fields, I believe that the only thing that we can predict now is that we don't know anything. We don't know the way that the world is going. We don't know. We cannot predict anything in 5 years. Back in the day, people had an option to say, I'm going to plan because in the next 10 years, 20 years, I'm going to be a doctor for 20 years, and this is what's going to happen. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years or 3 years. So it is we can think, we can plan, we can possibly imagine, but there's no certainty of anything. But if you ask me what I will like to happen is hopefully somehow at one point the internet and the way that people connect with the internet in terms of buying, it starts switching and go back a little bit of a more human interaction. And more specifically in my field, hopefully somebody or more people will say, I'd rather to have a table from Danny, from Felipe, and one that is well done, is done here in Victoria with good materials, more environmentally conscious, than go on Amazon or one of these big internet websites and buy one cheap and get it delivered to my house quickly. But hopefully, and also with the use of AI now, hopefully more people start thinking, well, I would like to talk to a human and have one thing, maybe not perfect, maybe imperfect, handmade, and maybe it's just one made for me rather than 300,000 made with a robot in China or somewhere else. That's what I hope it could happen, but maybe complete opposite. We don't know.
So you're talking bespoke pieces.
Yes,
And do you see that meaning less volume?
Probably yes, because I also believe that huge volume of things is not really a good thing.
Nice to hear. Yeah.
You know,
In terms of quality. Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. One thing sharing about culture of Mexico is that maybe we are creative in countries like Mexico or any other country in South America. We are more creative because we don't have as much resources. You will see a car, and instead of a stick, it will be an umbrella or something, because you have to be creative because you don't have the part or the money to have, or the time or the equipment to build the part. You are creative and you come up with a solution. I always think when you want to do something, you have resources, either money, time, or intelligence. You choose which. Hopefully, you have them all. That separates from the rest. But that's kind of what I think.
Definitely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I know I'm conscious that we have gone a little bit over, but I hope I speak for everyone that I've really enjoyed getting to hear all of your different perspectives today. And like whenever I get to listen to designers, I just like feel so hopeful and like inspired for the future because of how thoughtful you all are. Especially just to echo your point, Felipe, just how like everyone is just buying like the easiest, cheapest thing. And so like I also like I really hope for a future where people have these like really thoughtful pieces that fit into their own unique lives. So yeah, thank you again so much for your time, and we'll give everyone a round of applause. Our panelists will stick around for a little bit afterwards. If you do have any questions, I encourage you to go up and get to know them a little bit better.
If there's any questions, if you want to stay around,
Yeah, if anyone has to run, feel free.